Hello, welcome to Black Friday with Brittany Kennedy. Today is September 4th, 2020, and super excited about this new month. Not really excited about today though, because I got stung by a bee, this evil little creature, as I'm minding my own little business, walking my child through the neighborhood, and this little bitch comes at me, attacks me like I was doing something to it, and yeah, so I got stung by a bee today. But I also hear that in certain cultures it's considered good luck. So I'm trying to figure out what that omen means, that we just started a new month and there was just a full moon, and I don't know, there must be something positive to it. That's what I'm telling myself anyways. So for those of you that are new to Black Friday with Brittany Kennedy, this is a space where I like to talk about socio-economic issues in the Black community that are too taboo to talk about. I like to talk about them. My thought process is talking about them will help us create awareness, thus also helping us create solutions. So, Black Friday with Brittany Kennedy. Last week let me back up. Black businesses to support. So, one of my clients from my tarot reading, I guess I should just start out with that. So if you want a tarot reading, you can go to Tarot Readings by Brittany Kennedy on Facebook and book me for a reading. But anywho, so back to this lovely client of mine. Her name is Shalona Jennings, and she lives in Atlanta, Georgia, and she braids hair so well. I actually wish that, well, I don't wish that I lived in Atlanta, Georgia, because I don't want to live there, but maybe I wish that we lived closer so she could braid my hair. So maybe I wish she lived here, but she may not want to live here, so I probably shouldn't put that into the universe. Either way it goes, her hair braiding skills are phenomenal, like super phenomenal. So phenomenal that she was featured in the Shade Room recently, and she was featured underneath a business that she used to braid at, and she decided to go solo dolo. So you should definitely check her out. If you happen to live in Atlanta, in the surrounding areas of Atlanta, if you live in Georgia, if you're visiting Georgia and want to get your hair braided or whatever, I think you should definitely check her out. She's got a Instagram at Vibraid Higher Styles. I will put that in the drop down so you can check it out yourself. I'm not going to spell all that. And she also has a Facebook, and it is called Master Braider. I'll also put that below so you can just check on it. Again, I do tarot readings, Egyptian tarot readings. If you would like one, check me out. Again, on Facebook, Tarot Readings by Brittany Kennedy. That's all I have for the Black businesses section. Please support Black businesses. It's necessary. I know it's challenging. I know it's not easy because mainstream, we just want to pick up something really quickly. And you know, all these checks and balances as to whether or not it is a Black business or whatever. But even the things that are culturally Black, white people are like benefiting from our products, the things that we use the most. And so I feel like we should look for these things in the Black community and not support their pockets. Let them support their own pockets. They have enough money to, right? So hey, that's my thought process. Anywho, last week I posted a video talking about mental health, and it was called "Why is Mental Health Awareness Taboo in the Black Community?" And you guys did such a great job of showing me how taboo it really is, because I still only have about 45 views, and my views range from like 300 to about 900. And I only have 40 views, and I posted that video twice just to see, like, yo, are you guys really not responding to this? And yeah, sure enough, you guys are like, I don't want to talk about mental health. I'm good. I'd rather talk about Donald Trump, politics. I'll talk about how I'm a Black man and I think that I'm superior to a woman. You'll talk about all this other stuff, but you don't want to talk about mental health. And that is a very, very sad thing to me, because mental health affects our community greatly. It really does. And I do want to give some feedback that I got. So let me check out. So I did give feedback, even though it wasn't the enormous amount that I'm used to. But this gentleman said, "We have been taught to wear our trauma and scars as badges of honor, sometimes professing them aloud, not realizing the impact it has made on our lives. So we confused hurt with strength. Then emotional walls are built and in comes failed relationships one after another, whether it be friend or lover, compounding the issue. It is definitely a vicious cycle and even a harder one to break without proper help. I advocate for mental health and will continue to do so. He put it so eloquently. I love it. I love it. Like, just the idea of this is what we're doing with our pain. We're calling it strength. We're calling it, I'm strong. And yes, endurance shows a level of strength, but suffering is not strength. And so when we glorify our pain and mask that and call it strength, and we keep doing the same thing and we keep seeing the same cycle, thus like failed relationships, failed friendships, whatever it may be, without acknowledging that pain or that issue, like, I don't understand how we're still, how we glorify that. It needs to be addressed. And so I really, really encourage those in the Black community to take a look at your mental health. Mental health does not mean that you have a mental illness. Let me be very clear about that. Mental health does not mean that you have a mental illness. Mental health is the same thing like physical health. Do you work out? Do you exercise? Do you stretch? Do you eat properly? The same way that you've got physical health, you've got mental health. Asking yourself, like, hey, you know, what's my physical health like? When a doctor asks you that question, how are you feeling? You know what I'm saying? And you respond by letting them know, like, oh, you know, my back has been hurting, or my back doesn't hurt anymore, or whatever the issue is. Physical health. Like, you're not in there thinking like, oh my God, I'm this kind of person if my back hurts, or I'm this kind of person if this hurts. So why is it if you go and you have a conversation with a doctor or some kind of specialist about where you're feeling, your mental health? Right now, we're in the middle of a pandemic. You cannot tell me that we are all feeling great. Like, we have all pretty much decided and agreed that 2020 is the fuck you year of the entire century. How are we handling that? Where's our mentality at? Are you drinking it away? Are you smoking it away? Are you ignoring it? Are you being proactive about it? What are you doing to help you get through these difficult times? I know it's not easy. I've had my moments, not like crazy moments, because I do a lot of meditation. I do a lot of grounding work. I do a lot of physical exercise. I do a lot of the things that keep my mental health balanced. But if I did not, I had a baby right before the pandemic, like weeks before the pandemic. I stayed inside literally for probably, I think, 3 months straight without going outside at all, except for our backyard. And that was just literally to like look. It wasn't chilling in the backyard getting fresh air. So without coping mechanisms, without proper channels in place, I would probably be kind of like, what's happening in my head right now? What's going on in my heart? How am I feeling? So mental health, again, does not mean you have a illness. Mental health is just checking in, wellness, making sure you're balanced. So I encourage you to be more open about this topic, have these conversations, because it is very, very healthy, it's necessary, and ignoring it does not help us. And so that brings me into today's topic. And I know that was kind of a lot to say this, but today's topic is still about mental health and combining police brutality and what's happening. How are we responding to that? How does the Black community respond to police brutality in terms of our mental health? How do we handle our emotions about what's going on, about seeing our own brothers and sisters, our own race, our own people being slaughtered, this modern day approved genocide that the police have kind of taken on? How do we reconcile with that? How do we feel about that? Are we having these conversations beyond just sharing our thoughts and our opinions? Like, what is it doing to your psyche when you see your Facebook flooded with the latest killings, and how does that make you feel? Like, I think we need to start having those kind of conversations in the Black community. And really, even deeper than that, we need to start having conversations about what that does to how we respond to the police, how that affects how we interact with law enforcement when we are on that side, if it's just a routine traffic stop, if it's actually something more serious, whatever, how we respond to those individuals based upon the way that they have systematically treated us over the course of time, specifically very recently. How do we handle those kind of conversations? Because there's something that happens. I can tell you physically, excuse me, that I've gotten pulled over before and I've been like, oh my God. Oh my God, there's a fly in here. Gross. I've literally had those kind of moments. I've had moments where my ex-husband got pulled over, not pulled over, excuse me. Well, one time he did get pulled over, actually, back in like the late 80s, early 90s, when he first came to America from Kenya. And he was driving around in a neighborhood in San Diego, predominantly white neighborhood. This police officer is tailing him, and he actually pulls over. Like, they don't even put on the lights. He actually physically pulls over. The police officer pulls over along with him, and he's actually upset. He doesn't understand really the complete culture of America. He's just come from Kenya, so he thinks that he's in a safe environment. He can exercise his rights and his freedom and whatever. And this police officer, he challenged him. He asked him, like, why are you telling me? Like, what is there a reason why you're telling me? And the officer, responded in the way that somebody who thinks they are superior would respond. But then he kind of went a little bit overboard by pulling out his gun, putting it to his head, and told him, nigger, if I see you in these parts again, like, you're not going to make it through. That's his introduction to law enforcement in this country. Can you imagine what was happening to his psyche? Coming from Kenya, coming from colonization, coming from all these different things, and then coming to a land where you feel like you're supposed to be free, you're supposed to have these rights, you're trying to live the American dream, and this white man tries to put you in your place, so to speak. Like, that's crazy. Completely crazy. Another incident, he was helping an individual. A woman had fallen while he was driving some back roads in California. She falls from, she's like sitting on this kind of gate situation. It's like a vineyard, like out there. She falls. It's early in the wee hours of the morning. He goes into like proactive mode, decides to stop because it was a pretty bad fall. And I think initially, she actually ended up having to go to the hospital because I think she may have broken her arm or something anyways. But she's a little bit elderly, whatever. She happens to end up calling her spouse. But in the process, the police were called as well. And when the police show up, the police treats him as though he was some kind of culprit. Had him go sit down over in the corner or on the sidewalk while they ran his license plate, his information. And he was like, but I called you. I came here. I stopped to help her. Like, why are you treating me like I may have done something to her? And within like an hour, I end up seeing him come back into the house, and he's visibly upset and kind of in tears. And I'm like, what happened? Like, why aren't you at work? And he tells me this story, and it was like, it really affects you in your core to see somebody being mistreated in that kind of way. It hits you in your core. And so I think we really need to start having these conversations about mental health, how we feel about it. I pulled up an article that I'd like to share very briefly with you guys from Medical News Today, and it's called Police Violence, Physical and Mental Health Impacts on Black Americans, written by Anna Sandu, very recently, June 22nd, 2020. Let me scroll down here so I can just read this really quickly. I'm not going to read a lot to you guys today. Consequences for mental health. Unsurprisingly, the fear of violent encounters with the police and the ensuing stress can have negative effects on the mental and physical health of those it affects. Some experts have referred to those stressors within the larger scheme of structural racism. In a teleconference organized by public health philanthropic organization, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, Professor David R. Williams said, minorities experience higher levels of stress. Most of the common stressors and greater clustering of stress, i.e., if they have one, they have another. In addition to the traditional stressors, I think I just read that. No, I did not. In addition to the traditional stressors, minorities experience the stress of racial discrimination that has been shown to have a negative effects on physical and mental health. Professor David R. Williams. Other authors point out that the trauma, anxiety, hopelessness, and fear about future police encounters are all stressors. Accordingly, exposure to police killings in the residential environment or through news reports can trigger acute stress, a stress that may be amplified when those the police kill are unarmed and the killings are perceived as unjustified. Existing data support the above statements. For instance, a 2014 survey of over 1,200 men aged 18 to 26 years, which appears in the American Journal of Public Health, found that participants who reported more police contact also reported more trauma and anxiety symptoms. These associations were connected to how aggressive the police encounters were, as well as how intrusive and how fair the respondents perceived the police behavior to be. At the time, the authors concluded the intensity of respondent experiences and their associated health risk raised serious concerns, suggesting a need to reevaluate officer interactions with the public. The adverse mental health impact may also have a spillover effect onto other members of the community who are not directly affected. In a study co-authored by Professor Williams, researchers examined the effects that witnessing or hearing about the killing of a Black American have on white and Black Americans. The study examined the mental health of 38,993 Black adults out of an initial sample of 103,710 respondents who had had exposure to one or more police killings of unarmed Black Americans in the 3 months leading up to the study. The researchers used a mental health assessment score that counted poor mental health days among Black and white Americans. They found that with each additional police killing of an unarmed Black American, Black respondents were more likely to report additional poor mental health days. This likelihood was reflected in 0.14 additional poor mental health days for each killing among Black respondents. By contrast, mental health impacts were not observed among white respondents and resulted only from police killings of unarmed Black Americans, not unarmed white Americans or armed Black Americans. Anywho, the authors concluded police killings of unarmed Black Americans have adverse effects on mental health among Black American adults and the general population. Programs should be implemented to decrease the frequency of police killings and to mitigate adverse mental health effects within communities when such killings do occur. So, in short, that was a lot more than I expected to be actually read, but anywho, so it is really a big issue, and I would like to hear your feedback on where you are at mentally regarding what's happening in our community, what's happening to our people when it comes to police brutality and racial discrimination. How does it affect your mental health? What is your physical response to that, your mental response to that? How do you feel inside your body? What goes through your mind when you go through your Facebook feed and you see these things? I mean, when I go through my Facebook feed, honestly, and I'm in so many groups that are geared towards Black consciousness and the Black community, that it gets flooded, and I'll see post after post after post of it, and I oftentimes need to have a break. You know, it's very overwhelming in the sense that for me, it just sparks my desire to do something to help make a difference, however I possibly can. But it also is just one of those things that kind of it eats at you, you know? And even if I have a very balanced emotional state and approach to my mental health, it is something that I do definitely feel 100%. I have really truly come to the conclusion that the only place for me to truly live and to raise my son is probably back home in Africa. There's certain things I don't want to expose him to here in America. Racism being the main thing, the only thing really. I really want him to submerge himself into our culture and feel that, but I don't want him to feel like his skin is a weapon, that his skin color is something to be feared. I don't want him to apologize for his Blackness. I want him to be able to embrace that and to be free to be that. And I don't want to have that level of worry or concern for something happening to my son because simply only strictly the color of his skin. I think that is a horrible, horrible thing to have to go through, and that's our reality. That's something we have to think about when our women and our men walk out that door to go into the world. We have to be concerned. We have to think about the fact that something could happen to them simply because of their skin color. Racial profiling, bad treatment in a school, on the job, like wherever. And yet at the same time, we cannot be so hypersensitive to the issue that we think that every misfortune is a result of our skin color, but it is something also to consider. So I would love to hear your feedback. Please, if you haven't already, like this video, subscribe to my channel, share this video amongst your friends, your loved ones, your enemies, whatever. Please, please, please give me some feedback. I want to hear where you guys are at when it comes to your mental health. It is very, very important. If you are in the middle of having a mental health issue, if you feel like you need some assistance, please reach out and get the help that you need. Whether it is reaching out to a friend, a loved one, which a loved one should be a friend also, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, whatever. There are so many resources out there. NAMI, National Alliance of Mental Illness, is a great organization. Please reach out to them. There are a lot of different resources. You do not have to suffer in silence. You do not have to be alone in whatever you are going through. It does not mean something's wrong with you. It does not mean that you're crazy. It just means that you might need to get some assistance to create some more balance. And that's really what the universe is all about. It constantly seeks to create balance, and your body will do the same, and your mind, will, and emotions, and your spirit. So until next time, thank you so much for tuning in. Like I said, please give me some feedback. Please share this video. Ciao.